You're not imagining it. That pull to keep your parent happy, to monitor their moods, to walk on eggshells. It's exhausting. And even if you don't think it's your fault when they're upset, you might still feel like it's your job to fix it. You might not believe it's your fault when your dad is upset, but you still feel responsible for fixing it. That's where this family role starts to shape your emotional world. I'm Kati Morton, a licensed therapist, and today we're going to talk about what that role is, why it happens, and how to finally step out of it without guilt or anxiety. In many families, these roles start when we're really young. They're often unspoken. No one tells you to be the peacemaker or the caretaker or the clown. You just become that person. It starts to feel like a personality trait, like it's just part of who we are, when really, it's a survival strategy. Here are a few common roles that we can fall into in our family. One is the hero, and that's the responsible one, often the eldest child. The next is the caretaker or even martyr, and this is the person who meets everyone's needs and neglects their own. Then there's the lost child. This is the one who's quiet, maybe invisible, often overlooked. People are calling this role the glass child now because they aren't seen, they're kind of like looked through. Another role is the scapegoat or the black sheep. This is the one who's blamed when things go wrong in a family. Next up is the mascot or clown. This is the person in the family who lightens the mood with humor. And there's also the golden child. This is the child who is seen as perfect and often feels an intense pressure to perform. There's also the mediator. This is the person who keeps the peace. You could call them the peacekeeper too. Or the provider. And this is the person who ensures the financial stability and security of the household. Think for a second and see if any of those roles, maybe even rewind it back and listen again, see if any of those sound like you or your siblings or your parents. These roles can feel almost automatic, like they've always just been part of us. But I'm here to tell you that they are not permanent. So take a second right now and just think, what role did I grow up playing? And is that still the role that I'm playing today? Even if I don't want to. Take a minute and think about that. It's kind of tough, but take your time. If you grew up in a home where attention could shift on a dime, reading someone's mood wasn't just a skill, it was survival. But here's where things get tricky. What starts as healthy intuition, noticing patterns, sensing a shift, can quietly morph into unhealthy mind reading. You start guessing what someone's feeling, why they're feeling it, and what you need to do to fix it. All without any actual conversation. And doing that kind of sounds like care, right? It feels like empathy. I'm feeling for them. I can feel in a room how they're doing. But what this really is, it's a full-time job, managing someone else's emotional state. And I'm here to tell you that it will burn you out. You can't make anyone else happy. You can twist yourself into knots trying to keep the peace and still be blamed when things fall apart. That's not connection. That's control disguised as care. I'm going to say that one again because that's not connection. That's control disguised as care. When we assume someone is mad and then change our behavior to try to keep them calm, we're not just exhausting ourselves. We're stepping into a role that was never ours to play. Their emotions are theirs. Yours are yours. And the most loving thing we can do sometimes is to step back and let them own their own feelings. I know we all feel this pull to fix, and it can be really strong. It's like a familiar dance, right? We hear the music, we know all the steps, but the moment you stop dancing, one of two things will happen. Number one, someone else will step into the role that you used to fill. You'll see another member of your family doing the thing that you felt pulled to do but didn't. Or, the second, the family system will shift. And that person, yes, in this question, even this person's dad, will have to figure it out themselves. Either way, it's not your burden to carry anymore. Let's talk about something sneaky that shows up in so many of our relationships, especially the ones we have with our parents. You might know it's not your fault when someone gets upset, but you still feel like it's your job to fix it. And that's the difference between fault and responsibility. Fault is about blame. I caused this. Responsibility is about burden. I have to make it better. And the truth is, most of us weren't told to carry that emotional burden. We just quietly picked it up. Not because we wanted to, but because deep down, in some way or another, it feels safer. This usually goes back to something deeper, the role that we took in our family. And here's the wild part. Most of us don't even realize that we're playing a role. We just think, I'm the one who keeps the peace, or I'm the good helper, I'm the strong one, or even, I'm the one that they always blame. But these patterns usually started when we were really young, so young that we didn't even have words for them. They were just normal, expected, like a script handed to us before we could choose our own lines. And one of the most common survival strategies, learning to read moods. If you grew up around parents whose emotions were unpredictable, being able to sense their vibe might have helped you stay emotionally or even physically safe. If you got really good at reading their face, their silence, their sighs, maybe you got more attention. Or maybe you avoided an explosion. That's not weird. That's adaptation. But here's where it becomes a trap. As adults, we keep using that old strategy in new relationships. We assume we're responsible for how someone feels because back then it kind of worked. But now, that role can feel exhausting, and it's not your job anymore. The first step out of it isn't to change your family. We can't do that. That's not easy, right? It's not possible. It's just to recognize the role you've been playing, maybe for decades, and realize, oh, this isn't who I am. This is who I had to be. That's where the healing begins. I recently received this question on a live stream. It reads, "Hi, Katie. I've been talking to my therapist about my relationship with my dad. She said it seems I've taken on the role of making sure he's happy and that I'm not responsible for how he feels. I thought I understood that, but I still feel anxious when he's upset. I've seen his moods so many times that I know when something's wrong, even if he doesn't say it. I just don't know how to stop letting his emotions affect mine so much." This is such a common dynamic, and honestly, so many of us can relate to this exact dynamic. Once you start seeing the role that you've been filling in your family, whether that's the peacekeeper, the helper, the fixer, the next question is, what now? Here are 4 steps to help you start shifting out of those patterns and back into your authentic self. Number 1 is pay attention. Awareness is more than half the battle. Start noticing when that role shows up. When do you feel the urge to fix, soothe, or shrink yourself to keep the peace? Look at your family like a little emotional ecosystem. Who plays what role? Who gets quiet when things get tense? Who explodes? Who disappears? Refer back to the list of common family roles that we talked about earlier in this video, because this kind of observation helps you see the system that you've been a part of and realize you didn't create this, but you've been adapting to it for years. In fact, I will say that for most of us, this type of family dynamic has been passed down generation to generation to generation. So even your parents possibly didn't really create this. They've been following the pattern that was given to them from their parents and their parents' parents, etc. Moving on to number 2, practice setting clear, kind boundaries. When you're ready, try setting small, respectful boundaries that shift emotional responsibility back where it belongs. For example, you might say, "Dad, if something's bothering you, I'd appreciate it if you told me clearly. Otherwise, I'll assume everything's okay." This keeps the line of communication open, but also protects you from having to mind read or tiptoe. Number 3, reframe your thoughts gently but firmly. Cognitive reframing can help interrupt those old anxious loops. When you feel responsible for someone's mood, pause and remind yourself, their feelings are not my fault. I can care without carrying it. Intuition is helpful, but I don't need to guess, I can ask. These reminders help you tell the truth to your nervous system, and slowly but surely that anxiety starts to loosen its grip. Number 4, expect discomfort. I know, but you have to offer yourself some compassion. Stepping out of a family role that you've had for years can feel disorienting. You might feel sad, guilty, even a little lost, like a fish out of water. That's normal. That's part of the process, because you're not just changing how you show up, you're grieving the version of you that had to show up that way in the first place. Be kind to yourself. Go slowly. You're not letting anyone down. You're finally showing up for you. And with time, the anxiety will soften, the pressure will lift, and who you really are will have more space to breathe. You're allowed to step out of old patterns, even if they're familiar. You're allowed to say, this used to feel like love. Now it feels like self-abandonment. And you're allowed to choose something different. If you've been the fixer, the helper, the peacekeeper, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know what role you played growing up and how you're working to shift it now. Remember, you're not alone. And this work, it matters.